back and just been really looking forward to our time together with Ruthie Blum again, former advisor there in the office of the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. She's an award-winning columnist, senior contributor to JNS News, a Jewish News Syndicate, and the co-host with the ambassador of the Israel Undiplomatic there on JNS TV. So what a joy to have her. By the way, the website is jns.org, Jewish News Syndicate. It is the place to go to get informed. Ruthie, good to see you again. How are you?
Thank you, Perry. It's great to be back.
Wow. There in Tel Aviv tonight. Well, so many questions.
Right.
What's going on with Israel moving tanks into the West Bank?
Well, you know, there's a mini war going on over there because if you think there are only Hamas terrorists in Gaza, you're mistaken. The West Bank, or what we call Judea and Samaria, the Palestinian Authority, is filled with terrorist cells. Not only Hamas, there's also Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Fatah. Fatah is the ruling faction of the Palestinian Authority president, I say in quotes, Mahmoud Abbas, otherwise known as Abu Mazen. Fatah is his faction. It's the ruling faction, and it is also filled with terrorists. And as you know, that faction pays all terrorists from there, all the Palestinian terrorists, stipends every month for committing terrorist acts against Jews.
Where are the ceasefire agreement talks now?
Well, we're hearing reports that the Israeli government denied today that Hamas has agreed to release two bodies still held captive in Gaza today or tomorrow, ahead of Thursday. On Thursday, they were supposed to release 4 bodies. And Israel, because of what Hamas did on Saturday, when it released, first of all, when it released the bodies last Thursday of one of the hostages, an 83-year-old man named Oded Lifshitz, and then 3 other dead bodies, the family members, a mother and her 2 babies, the Bivas family. Now, when the bodies were brought for forensic examination, it turned out that the mother that was not her body. And only the following day did Hamas return the body. And then on Saturday, we had a release of 6 live hostages. Now, in each case, there was a disgusting display of all these Gazans came out to celebrate and cheer and jeer. It was horrific. So, as a result, Prime Minister Netanyahu said, okay, we're not releasing the 630 terrorists from our jails because you violated this agreement by having that disgusting display. So now the negotiation is such that we are trying to get some more bodies and live hostages before Thursday's deadline. And may I add one other thing? When the 6 hostages were released on Saturday, Hamas brought 2 other hostages in a van, right near the Red Cross van, by the way, to show them the release of hostages. And the 2 of them were told to say, oh my God, we want to get out. First of all, they do want to get out. We want to go home. And it was a propaganda video, but these 2 poor guys, emaciated guys, in a van next to the Red Cross van, pleading to be let out. And this is just another example of Hamas's cruelty.
That's so hard for us, Ruthie, to get our head around. We can't even process it. No. Do we have a number on the remaining hostages?
Yes, 63. Now, we don't know for certain how many are alive. I know that there's an estimate. If the 4 bodies that are promised are delivered on Thursday, again, I don't know, this is all behind-the-scenes negotiations. But after those 4 bodies, we will have 59 hostages in Gaza. And I believe that the number of live hostages is about 24.
Wow. also over the weekend, Iran raised its ugly head and said total annihilation of Israel. I mean, that can't set well in the middle of all these talks. I'm sure that's being taken seriously, right?
Well, of course, but Iran has said that all along. Iran has missiles with Hebrew letters on them. You know, Iran says we want to annihilate the state of Israel. At Hassan Nasrallah's funeral in Lebanon yesterday, that's the Hezbollah chief, whom we, you could say, assassinated during the war. His funeral was held yesterday in Lebanon. Thousands and thousands of people attended, including Iranian dignitaries. After all, Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. And they were shouting, "Death to Israel, death to America." This is the classic Iranian chant. Now, not Iranian, by the way, the Iranian mullahs chants. The Iranian people, I don't believe the majority feels that way.
I realize President Trump is trying to treat Iran like he did in his first administration, where he put a lot of economic pressure on them and basically broke them. But in the meantime, Israel is expressing we have to take out the nukes and possibly regime change. In the meantime, all these other talks are going on. It seems to me what's happening behind the scenes is that the U.S. is supplying Israel with what it needs to do what it wants to do. Or am I oversighting that?
No, well, I have to say, it certainly sounds that way. President Trump has been amazing where Israel is concerned. He says whatever Israel needs to do, do it. And I think I've said on this program before that, you know, some people think that saying "Make America Great Again" or "America First" means that America is ignoring its allies. No, not at all. I think America First is very essential for American allies around the globe and essential for everybody, because if America is strong, when America is strong and on the right side of history, we all benefit. And President Trump has made it clear, of course, where Hamas is concerned, made it clear that whatever Israel decides to do, wipe them out or negotiate, whatever Israel decides to do, Trump will support. But where Iran is concerned, now we know Trump has said, I'm paraphrasing, of course we prefer to get rid of Iranian nukes through diplomatic means, but if not, there are other options on the table. Perhaps he is hoping that if the diplomatic route fails, which it will, because Iran lies, and it has in the past, every deal made with these thugs is not worth the ink that's signed it, is that maybe he's hoping that Israel, because we don't want American troops on the ground anywhere. We know the American people really do not want that, and Trump was elected to guarantee that as best as possible. But to enable Israel to do it, that's a different story. And giving backing doesn't mean sending boots on the ground anywhere. It means saying, okay, we're going to supply you the weapons you need and also the moral support you need, and perhaps airspace over countries, you know, put pressure on other countries for Israel to use the airspace in such an attack.
Wow. One other quick question before I take a break. I don't know if we understand here in the West the pressure that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is under to get all the hostages out, but it seems the way this is going, we may not get them all out alive. I mean, I hate to even ask that question or insinuate that, but it seems like to me, given the tactics of what they've done in just in the last 2 weeks, I don't know how this possibly could end up where they're all out alive, unless I'm being too negative.
No, you're not being too negative, and I know that all Israelis fear that. Now, First of all, they're not all alive. What we call hostages, we also consider the dead bodies hostage. Many of these the dead bodies were killed on October 7th during the terrible massacre, and their bodies were dragged into Gaza because Hamas knows that Israel cares about every single Israeli. We say we don't leave anyone behind, and that includes the deceased, so that they can be brought home for proper burial. But here's the thing. You're right that it's tricky because Hamas has no interest in giving up all the hostages, since that's their only leverage of any kind. I mean, we've totally destroyed, not totally, we've destroyed much of their military capability and much of their governing capability, although, again, because we are being too generous with humanitarian aid, Hamas is still in charge of the food. And that's a bad thing, because then it still has control over all the population there. But of course, I have to say, and I know it's unpopular in liberal circles to say this, but there aren't too many civilians in Gaza. The ones who are civilians, they support Hamas. They want to kill Jews. Let's be real here. So there is no interest in returning all the hostages. We need a kind of pressure that forces them to.
All right, let me take a quick break. Go to jns.org. That's the Jewish News Syndicate.org. And Ruthie is an award-winning columnist and senior contributor and editor there. It's very informative. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Such an honor to have with us today Ruthie Blum. We're Skyping her in live from Tel Aviv. She's a former advisor there in the office of the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, award-winning columnist, senior contributing editor to the Jewish News Syndicate, and she's co-host of an amazing TV program, Israel Undiplomatic, on the JNS TV series. JNS.org is the website. Oh, Ruthie, by the way, did I hear you say, first of all, thank you. I know it's late in the evening over there, and when we call you, give us time, we value it greatly. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And it's not that late, Perry, let me just say. I mean, it's evening.
Okay.
It's evening, but it's not very late.
Okay.
So
I'm taking you from your falafel. I'm sorry. Did I hear you say earlier that the body of the mother has been returned?
Yes, it has. It was returned 24 hours after the revolting ceremony with a coffin that turned out she was not in. That was the body of, they did extensive DNA testing and every other kind. It was a body of a random Palestinian woman from Gaza.
Gosh, that's savagery. Your recent article about the contrasting upbringing of Israeli children and Palestinian children, let me say to our viewers and listeners, it's a must-read. What provoked you to take this on?
Well, you know, we're all parents and grandparents, and I see those two beautiful boys touched most of the world, because aside from the fact that they're gorgeous redheads, and so they stuck out, you know, their bright red hair, but also just the idea that somebody would kidnap a mother with her two babies. We all saw the terrible video. And by the way, Hamas did most of those videotapes themselves. They were proud of it. So first of all, they became a symbol of this whole disgusting massacre and of mass abduction. Second, it is known throughout the decades that the Palestinian Authority educates children to want to kill Jews and Christians and infidel, quote unquote, Muslims. It's in their school books. You know, there are math problems, for example. If you kill 2 Jews and then you kill 3 more, how many total is that? I mean, that's the kind of math books they have. They have crossword puzzles in their newspaper, also with all kinds of Hitler references. They have sports arenas named after mass murderers. This is how those children are raised. So when I say to you there are no civilians in Gaza, of course people say, well, you know, you can't talk about the young children. Now, I don't blame the children, but because their parents indoctrinate them. But there can be no peace with a society that indoctrinates each new generation in such horrific ideology. So I was reminded, because the two Bivas boys, there is another famous picture of them when they were celebrating Purim, which is when kids in Israel, or Jews, dress up the way you would on Halloween. And there's a lovely picture of them in Batman costumes. And as I point out in my article, their heroes are Batman, are superheroes who do good, who save the world. And the heroes of the Palestinian children are mass murderers, are martyrs for Allah. And we saw at these ceremonies of returning the hostages, tons of young children with Hamas headbands on, and Hamas, and not only Hamas, all the terrorist factions. And their parents are bringing them there, and you know, they have babies in their arms and young children, the same age as those children who were murdered by their captors' bare hands. And it wasn't just, they weren't just shot, not that I would say just, but it takes a particularly brutal kind of person to strangle a young child, a 4-year-old and a 9-10-month-old or something. It's just, you can't wrap your head around it. So you contrast the children who came out to cheer the death of Jews and the children who were killed who celebrate Batman and Superman.
How was the response to your article?
Well, it was good because a lot of people know that. I mean, Israelis do know that about the children in Gaza. But you know, again, it's not only in Gaza; it's in Judea and Samaria as well. These are children who are taught from a very young age that the highest honor is to die in the process, or get wounded in the process of committing terrorist acts. It's being a martyr. They call it in Arabic shahid, and they say that's what you want to strive for. There are mothers who say that they're proud of their sons and daughters who go out to commit terrorist acts because they're doing this for the greater, they consider that the greater good. It's shocking, and but by now Israelis aren't so shocked by that because we're used to it.
Where do you think we are, or you are, in the process now of finally going in and finishing the job in Gaza? I mean, is there a line in the sand? Has it been crossed, or does it keep getting pushed?
Yeah, well, it does keep getting pushed, and I would not want to be in Prime Minister Netanyahu's shoes because he has much pressure, internal pressure, to many people saying, okay, fine, especially hostage families, okay, fine, just stop the war, do whatever, just get the hostages home, which, by the way, is impossible because it doesn't matter if we stop the war. Hamas is not going to give the hostages, all the hostages back. So, you know, it's their wishful thinking, the people who want this. He's under immense pressure. He also wants the hostages home. It's not just that he's being pressured to want them home. He does want them. We all do. Now, I personally, I take a very, my position throughout this war has been not to let a drop of humanitarian aid into Gaza. I feel that Israel, what we did wrong from the beginning was we let Hamas dictate the terms, and the UN and the Biden administration. Now, it's possible we had no choice, okay, because we can't go up against Washington, although Biden Biden betrayed us badly, and he withheld weapons, and he said all along, he and Secretary of State Blinken said, you know, be careful not to kill any civilians and get more humanitarian aid into Gaza. So it was problematic, and thank God President Trump doesn't say that. 'Cause all along I felt that all we're doing is giving Hamas the upper hand. We needed to switch the equation to say, if you don't return these hostages, you're going to get starved out. You're not going to have electricity or water or sewage. Early days in the war, we were fixing their pipes. And some people said, well, we need to do that because the hostages won't get fed if there's no humanitarian aid going in there. But they were purposely starving the hostages. That aid wasn't going to the hostages. It was going to Hamas. Hamas stole from the aid truck, stole all the aid, and sold it to Gazans for exorbitant prices. I mean, the whole thing. So my position all along has been we had to get tougher with them than we have been. And I don't mean just bombing buildings where terrorist activity is taking place. I mean using our leverage against them. But again, you know, the international community has been against us this whole time.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part. Even with the baby's boys' pictures, and it's amazing to me that alone wasn't enough to finish the conversion of people of what's going on there. Do you think a strike on Iran is imminent?
I do. Well, let me rephrase that. I hope so. I have no inside information on whether it's imminent. For years, we've been saying that they are just on the verge of getting the bomb. You know, how many years have we heard? In 2 weeks, in 2 months, whatever. They certainly have enough enriched uranium. The question is, can they get those into warheads? I don't understand enough about how that works, about how a nuclear bomb works, and I don't pretend to. I believe there will be no choice. Now, as for regime change, I don't think that Netanyahu is aiming for regime change or aiming to do something active to cause regime change in Iran. What I believe, though, is if and when the nuclear sites are taken out, that will enable the Iranian people to rise up against the regime.
Ruthie, thank you. God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out jns.org is the website. You can read all of our articles there. It is the place to go for information. That's the Jewish News Syndicate, jns.org. Thank you, Ruthie. Have a great evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Perry. Have a great evening, too.